Welcome, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of a detour from what we're talking about before when it came to Social Security planning. I'll get back to that here in the next episode. But today, I'm going to share with you an interesting topic that a friend sent to me about index annuities. Now, my friend is a certified financial planner who works primarily with government employees, military employees, and civilian who have large TSPs, Thrift Savings Plans, on top of their either FERS or CSRS for a pension, and of course, military pensions as well. And it's interesting because he's told me he's getting a lot of his clients who are being solicited for these index annuities, and he doesn't like it. And neither do I. Now, the problem with him is he works for a big firm, so he has very much limitations of what he can say. So he said, hey, look at this, Josh, and if you want to talk about it, be my guest. And I do want to talk about it. And thankfully, because I have my own registered investment advisory firm, I can say whatever I want, obviously with restrictions. I can't, start guaranteeing you rates of return or anything like that. But I can say what's the shenanigans that are out there in the financial advisor industry. And that's what I've been wanting to say for 20 years. That's why I started Heritage Wealth Planning, because for 20 years, I had to keep my mouth shut. And I don't blame the firms. I mean, they got to police up their own. They can't have, fly-by-night guys just spouting off. But for me, it's important to be able to say what I've seen over my 20 years and share it with you as well. So let's get into it. So this is the annuity, strategic index annuity from the American National Insurance Company. And again, the premise is his client is a Thrift Savings Plan account through the federal government. A TSP is got wonderful fees structure in terms there are no fees essentially. It's completely subsidized by the feds. And in fact, I have an article on TSP and why it's a bad idea more often not to roll over your TSP to any kind of product, in particularly a high expense product like what we have here. And you can read that below. So let's go over what this is. You always got the happy couple, the graybeard guy with his wife at the beach. They're all smiling, happy as can be. More smiles, more love is great. And the annuities, they'll buy you that. What I found is the premise of the index annuity groups are to avoid the downside risk. And they're going to share those downside risks with you like it's going to happen tomorrow if you don't do this annuity. And then they're going to say, look, we're going to guarantee you upside returns, market-like returns, if you will, but we're going to shave off the risk. So it's almost like a win-win. Really? I can get market-like returns with limited risk? Sign me up. Well, I'm going to show you what happens when you go that route. And again, they're going to focus on protection strategies, protection from negative consequences. In the event the underlying index performs negatively, you'll be never credited below zero, so you won't lose money. They're going to talk about income taxes, protection from income taxes, because a TSP would roll over to an IRA, which is already tax deferred. This is a moot point, and they actually make mention of that down below. They say there are no additional tax benefits by funding an IRA with an annuity. So they say that. Death benefit protection is a non-starter. I'm telling you, buying an annuity for death benefit is the vast majority of time is not worth it for sure. Now, there are exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, in my 20 years of business, I've hardly ever seen it worth it to buy an annuity to get death benefit protection. Just not worth it. We're going to talk about lifetime income riders, and the annuity options are some of the strategies they have for income. I'll use another video to talk on that. Well, I'm not a fan of that at all. And with this video, we're just going to talk about crediting strategies. They're going to say, hey, at the end of the day, strategies are related to the movement of the S&P 500, which means they're market-like returns. They're using a market of the S&P 500, which is typical. And the declared rate strategy is flexible. That gives you the stability of a fixed rate of return that you can have as a guarantee to make a little bit of money on their crediting strategies. So basically, there's 4 different crediting strategies here, and most index annuities are going to follow some scenarios similar to this. And the first one is a declared rate. In this case, they're using an example of a 2% declared. So they start off in the beginning of the year. They're going to declare 2% rate of return, which means if you have $10,000 in there, you'll have a total gain of $200. So your account will be worth $10,200 after a year. The next year, their declare would be 3% or 1%, whatever it is, and that's what the declared strategy is. You won't get more, you won't get less, and you won't lose money. They also have this year-over-year performance specified rate is based on the index, the S&P 500. Here they're saying we're going to guarantee you 3% if the index is up in the year. So if the index is up 20 million percent, you're going to get 3. If the index is up 1/2 of 1%, you're going to get 3. If the index is down, you will not get anything, but you won't lose money either. Okay, so here they're saying there's no downside risk and you're guaranteed a 3% if the market is up for that year. That does leave a lot to be desired, and I'll share it with just a second. More happy people. Here they're going to talk about a point-to-point monthly scenario. Let me just move myself over. And they're saying we're going to take the months of the year. There's 12 months, and each month the market did something. In this case, it's up 4, up 2, down 3, blah, 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 for a total of 5.5% a year. So in this case, you had a 5.5% month-to-month cap rate of return here. Don't think that's what you're going to get, because you're not. Well, I'll share with you in just a second. But that's how they're using this example to show you a different way you can earn money in this index annuity. Secondly, they say, hey, if the market goes down for those months, you won't lose money. So interest rate credit will be 5.5 in this scenario, or 0 in a down scenario. And you're like, hey, that's not too bad. Watch. So here we go. Participation rate and cap rate. These are the two most important things, participation rate and cap rate. So here we have a 12% index rate of return. We have a 100% participation rate, which means we will get 12%. 100% of 12% is 12%. Here we have a 50% participation rate. Index is up 12%. 50% of 12% is 6%. So we'll get half what the market does if our participation rate is half. But there's a second part of this, a cap rate. Here, participation rate is 100%, but we're capped out at 4%. So the index increases by 12. Because we have a cap of 4, we'll have a 4% crediting rate. That's it, because we are capped at 4%. Here, we have a participation rate of 50%. The market is up by 12, so 12 divided by 2 is 6. And our max cap is 7, which means we will earn 6% because we got half the market rate, but it was still under our max cap. And what they say here is a higher participation rate offers a lower cap, and a lower participation rate offers a higher cap. And so that tells you right there, if you have a lower participation rate, you have a higher cap, a higher participation rate, you have a lower cap. So at the end of the day, if you got 20% rate of return, you know this will only give you 4. This will give you half of the market rate, which would be 10, but it'll be maxed out at 7. So a 20% rate of return on this case would give you 7. 20% rate of return on this case would give you 4. They use an example of 6% here. 6% with 100% market participation, capped at 4, gives you a 4% return. 6% market increase with a 50% participation rate means you'll get 3%. All right, it's very confusing, but that's how it works. So when you're seeing these numbers up here, 100% participation rate, and it's not the end of the story. And then when you're seeing this number right here on a month-to-month basis, 5.5% interest rate crediting, that's not the end of the story either. You have to find out what your participation rate is and what your caps are as well. All right, so let's talk about their performance. So they have these 4 different buckets we just talked about. And they say we're going to use a hypothetical. In 1997, we're going to have Miss Smith, Miss Jane drop in $100,000, and we're going to put a quarter into each of the 4 different scenarios. So 20 years ago, Miss Jane dropped in $100,000, put 25% in each. What happened at the end of the 20-year time frame? She had $155,000 in her account. $155,000. So she dumped $100,000 in, was guaranteed not to lose any money. But she made $55,000 over those 20 years, which meant her total rate of return was about 2.2% on an average base. 2.2. All right, that's not good. There's just no other way around that. Yeah, she was able to avoid these negatives right here. And to be perfectly honest, these were trying. I'm not going to deny that. This is tough to do. In hindsight, it's easy to remember that as we avoided those and got our money back. But during this time right here, it was scary, especially if you just retired. especially if you just retired. But at the end of the day, over these 20 years, to get 2.2%, I mean, if you want guarantees, you'd be better off in a 20-year treasury bond, because 20-year treasury bonds are 100% guarantee as long as you hold it to maturity. If you buy a bond at $100,000 at issue date and it matures at 20 years, you're going to get your $100,000 back because it's guaranteed by the feds, the treasury bond. Plus, you would have got that interest at that point. Now, I don't know what a 20-year treasury bond was doing back then, but it's certainly doing more than 2.2%, which is what this is showing you here. A lot, it's probably 5%. So in this case, you not only didn't make enough money to cover the rate of inflation, which is about 2.5%, but if you would have just locked in your money in a 20-year treasury bond, you would have done 2.5 times better. Exactly 2.5 times better with less risk, because treasury bonds are guaranteed by the feds. Insurance companies annuities are only guaranteed by the insurance company, which is not guaranteed by the feds and not guaranteed by the state. And I have a problem with that. In fact, I ran a scenario, just a plain vanilla mutual fund, which I won't post here, but I said, what happens if I dumped $100,000 into that guy, a 3-star rated Morningstar, nothing fancy, 3.5% front end commission. So even paying 3.5% on the front end, you'd have gone into it with only $96,500, having lost $3,500 in commissions. What would have happened to that? Now, that is an all stock fund. All right. And so it's aggressive to some degree, but it's plain vanilla. It's like what's called a moderately aggressive stock fund, because it does have more cash than typical funds. And any of these, I'm just using one fund as an example. This fund goes back to the beginning of time, basically to the 1930s. And it's a good fund. Nothing fancy about it. It's just plain vanilla as you can be, with this front end sales commission with an average expense ratio of about 0.6. So it's not the dirt cheap. It's not very fancy, but that fund would have given you a return of $450,000. You would have had $450,000 in your account after 20 years, after the debacle of 2000, 2001, and 2, and October 2007 to March of 2009. You would have tripled the performance of this annuity. Again, hindsight is 20/20, but if you would have done, say, 50% in the mutual fund and 50% in the 20-year treasury bond to guarantee your return, you would have smoked this right here with no surrender charges. Because don't forget, one of the things that you got to remember are these surrender charges that I'm going to show you here in just a second. And the surrender charges aren't cheap, guys. Right there. Surrender charge, 99876 on the first 10 years. You're going to pay surrender charge to have access to your money. Now, most annuities will give you 10% with no surrender charge after the first year. So if you were to take $20,000 out of this annuity in year 2, the first $10,000 would be free and clear of any surrender charge, but the next $10,000 would be subject to 9%. So it would cost you $900 to get access to your $20,000. If you took out $30,000, it'd be even more, and so on and so on. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. So not only did you get pretty insignificant returns over those 20 years, but you're subject to surrender charge too. If you had a rude awakening, you said, I don't know if I like this product so much. All right, so I'm going to close this thing today on this, because I'm going to talk more next time about the income strategies that come with this exact annuity and how they leave a lot to be desired too. It may seem like I'm bashing on these. I guess I am, actually. I don't mean to be overly over the top bashing on them, but at the end of the day, I mean, they're using these numbers. I'm not using numbers. I'm just using off their brochure. And these index annuities leave a lot to be desired, in my opinion, absolutely, especially if you're going from a low-cost TSP into something like this. I would just think twice about it. There's obviously a one-off. Your one-off might be different. Watch the next video on the income benefits that come with this, because I think that will show you again why to move your TSP to this is just not a good move, in my opinion. That's just my opinion now, just my opinion. All right, so thumbs up if you like what I say. Comment below when you're upset, 'cause I know there'll be some people who think I'm crazy and don't like that I'm banging on these index annuities. I'm willing to be convinced, but you're going to have to convince me, because what I'm seeing right here does not do it for me. So thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell so be notified of more content. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.